Hey, it's Chris. Facade Games, Hollywood 1947. From the line of Salem, Tortuga, Deadwood, and Bristol, their previous social deduction games. This is Facade Games' latest coming to crowdfunding. What do you need to know? Who is it right for? Where does it stand comparison-wise to those other ones? What do you need to know about it? Let me tell you, highs, lows, everything else, so that you can find out whether or not this is right for you. Let's do this. So straightforward, this is a social deduction game with a few extra elements. It reminds me most of the sense that this is, like a lot of other secret deduction games, a hidden role game where you have one of two possible, even up to a third, different role that you are actively taking. You have either the communists, the patriots, or you even have a neutral that can win on either grounds. And all you're going to be doing is you're going to be gradually assigning, reassigning, rolling, contributing, and changing jobs in order to influence what movies are made on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis. And if you can get 4 made of your kind, then you win. If you can't, well, you know what happens. And so what you're going to be doing in this game is you're going to be gradually playing those on a round-by-round basis, swapping jobs, rolling dice, and actively allocating these cards in a hidden manner, because these are essentially your vote cards. And there are going to be a couple different types of these vote cards. There are going to be patriots, there's going to be communists, and there's also going to be a few other twists along the way, including a neutral, but then also special ones that allow you to re-roll dice. And the dice matter because when you play on your turn, you have the ability to contribute, like I said, one of your secret cards. But you can only contribute one of your secret cards if you roll these dice and you get not what I rolled there. You need to roll a star. And so the abilities, the jobs that you're going to have access to that are going to be in plethora right here, numbered 1 through 9, they are going to give you ways to manipulate not only the game state, the movie state, the jobs, as well as the dice that are available to you or re-rolled on the board. And that's what you're mitigating along the way. So that is the overview of things as a nutshell. Because what you're going to be doing essentially is marking them either neutral if they're yellow, you're going to be marking these red if you complete them as a communist, or you're going to be marking them as blue if you are the patriot who wins it. Now, the other thing that you need to know about these movies, and the big difference on all of them is just what's in the lower right-hand corner here. You can see that this one starts out with 2 communists. So that just means that when you're tallying those up, that has to be factored into when you lay the cards down. And so at the beginning of this game, obviously, like all secret hidden deduction role games, there's going to be a sort of heads down, thumbs up sort of approach where the communists are going to recognize each other and you're going to know a little bit of who's who and how you're going to be able to interact and who's voting where. The basic concept of this is simple. If you want to see a really well-made how to play movie, go check out the Bite Win Games video on Board Game Geek. The concept is you have a job. Your job has an asymmetric ability. Your asymmetric ability is going to allow you to manipulate the actions or the roles or the movie itself in terms of what's available or even who has what job or who can re-roll dice. And so on your turn, if you have the ability to do so, you are going to be eligible to put one of the cards in your hand down as what you want to vote for this movie to become, either communist, patriot, or neutral. And so depending on who can add cards in, then you add the cards up, the total plus whatever's on the bottom of the movie in the first place, and that decides it after everyone has taken their turn. Straightforward. But just like with all of these games, when you contribute a certain number of cards to the pile, then you shuffle them up, you add one randomly to the pile, and then you shuffle them up further and you actually discard one. So then I'm still only using these, rinse, okay, look, that one actually ends up being yellow, everything cancels out, except for the fact that if it was this one in this case, it would have one neutral as well, so it ends up canceling. That's all you're doing in this game. And it's just going to allow you different ways to manipulate these dice that you're rolling, as well as, okay, what job titles you're going to be doing, because you're going to have a market out there in the first place of these jobs that you can either choose from to change as one of your actions, or the job abilities themselves, which are going to give you, like I mentioned, ways to mitigate, relegate, or even manipulate as you're going along, depending on what you want to do, votes, dice, or other. So what do I think of this game? This game, like all social deduction games, is relatively straightforward. The biggest compliment I can say is it's very solid. If you do not have anything in this genre, I mean, this is a very, very nice entry point. It's got enough mitigation. It's got enough variability between the jobs here and the dice that you're going to be kept on your edge, and there's enough doing and interacting with that you're not going to be sort of lulled by a turn-by-turn basis stasis, if you will. Because if you've played any of these games, you know that sometimes not a whole lot may be happening in this round, and or you just don't want to be actively engaged. And so this one is going to have you a little bit more engaged because you're taking an action every single time, every single round, and it's a meaningful action of your own choosing. However, how you choose to mitigate it and what you choose to do can be as engaging or not as you want. Like most of these social deduction games, though, in my experience, you really need to have the upper player count. I really think you need to have a 5 to 8 side of the player count to get the full experience. Not that it's bad, but I just feel like the elements of these don't shine very well at less than that player count, and this one stands true to that mark. There is nothing overtly bad or concerning about this game. At the other hand, there is nothing that makes this game necessarily stand out in ways that you may not have seen before. You know, you have your hidden role, you have your hidden ability, you have your ways to mitigate and manipulate. So it's not doing anything stand-alone-ish that it's going to put it head and shoulders above something else if you've played other iterations of games like this. Unlike their other games, it doesn't have like a race mode, or it doesn't have more of a push your luck mode. You know, the push your luck and the big element that people may not like I mentioned, are the dice. Because if you just don't roll right, well, you know, sometimes you can mitigate, sometimes you can't. And, you know, that's the dynamic of having to flavor or force that into your accounting of who's what. I like it better than your basic werewolf or that ilk, because you have a little bit more control with several of those elements that you otherwise are lacking in similar games. I'm not a huge fan of some of the other ones like Quest Avalon or that aspect of things. I like something with a little bit more, but not perfect information. I also do not like the overly complex ones or the elimination ones always because of those detriments, you know, and that isn't something that you're going to have to deal with in this as well, which is a positive. Overall speaking, it just works. I mean, there's no real fault to this. There's no real criticism in terms of what it's not doing. I would say that I would like maybe just one more additional element of manipulation, of mitigation, just because I feel like it needs just that one little thing extra. So if they have something else hidden up their sleeve with an expansion or a module or something else like that, I feel like, again, it could take it to the next level to give it just enough of a little bit extra, but it's straightforward enough that you could easily introduce this to anyone you want to play with at any time, any experience level, and have some relatively good moments with it from that aspect of not being too overwhelming or, you know, off-putting in terms of trying to get into it from the first aspect. Because the other thing I see in some of these games is they try and do too much. They try and do too much of these abilities. They try and make it too asymmetric. So all of a sudden, you know, you've got like 4 of the roles. Like, I love Deduction, Murder in Hong Kong, right? But once you get past like the basic murderer and accomplice, you have all these other roles that sort of like splinter it down and nuance it. And, you know, you're like, okay, which game is this? And how many of these do I want to include? And what do I need? And sometimes elegance is in the simplicity of a game. And so that's what this one does. It's not trying to do too much. It's not trying to do too little. It's just falling in a nice niche there that it's a comfort zone for this. And so if you're looking for a comfort zone social deduction game with a slightly bit more than those other things that I mentioned, it's great. But again, it's not going to, you know, blow your mind away. You're not going to be blown away by, oh, wow, this is doing something completely innovative. It doesn't need to. But if you're looking for that, again, this isn't going to be that. I personally like the addition of the dice. I like the rolling, the little bit of chance there, and the ability to manipulate not only your own dice, but other people's dice, depending on your ability. But other people may not. And so if you're not a big dice fan, again, this one's probably a stay away for you just from that aspect. So that is my thoughts on Hollywood 1947. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your concerns. Let me know your questions. Happy to answer them down below. Facade Games, thank you for sending me the copy so I can be able to talk about it with you guys in the first place. That's all I got. Stay classy. See you around. Subscribe if you want. Patreon down below. Woo! Short and sweet.